friends. Sean McDonough is brought to you by Catches Law Group, New England's injury pros. Set up your free injury consultation when you visit catcheslaw.com. And Sean McDonough joins us this morning on the Harbor One hotline. Hey, Sean. Hello? Maybe Sean.
Hello, can you hear me? Good morning.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're doing great. Wanted to start with you this morning because you've been around the Red Sox for a long time, and I know, like us, have had the opportunity to get to know Tim Wakefield a little bit, and he, not only what he brought to the Red Sox organization as a player, but what he did over and over again off the field is such an important legacy, and I know that you were able to experience that in many ways. So I wanted to get your thoughts on Tim Wakefield this morning to start.
Well, it's still obviously incredibly shocking and really, really sad, and can only echo what so many people, including you just now, said, quite eloquently or written beautifully. He was everything that everybody has said he was and more. The last few times I saw him, and I've seen him around Fenway Park when he was doing the games, but, the most time I spent around him, the last two times were my charity golf tournament in August, less than 2 months ago. And, he was the picture of health and his usual self. And at the Red Sox Foundation golf tournament, which he was the chairman of, and, we all know, a lot of people do charity and it's the right thing to do, and they show up because people ask them, and, they care about it, but, people are busy. I think what always struck me about Wake is he really cared. I mean, he cared deeply about the Jimmy Fund and Dana Farber and the patients that he met, the countless patients that he met and their families. It wasn't just something that he did because he thought it was the right thing to do. So, we were friends for 30 years. I first met him in 1992. When I was doing the National League playoffs for CBS, and he was pitching for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And it's really bugged me ever since then. If the Pirates didn't blow Game 7 of that National League Championship Series against Atlanta, he probably would have been the MVP of that series. He pitched 2 complete games, won 2 of the 3 games the Pirates won. And it was interesting because not long thereafter he really struggled, and Pittsburgh let him go, and he wound up with the Red Sox, and obviously an amazing career. One of the greats in Red Sox history was launched. But, even back then, it became a running joke for us. I was working with Tim McCarver, and Tim McCarver had played Major League Baseball with a guy named Bill Wakefield, and he just had a mental block when we were doing the series. Not every time he mentioned Tim, but he called him Bill. So, a lot of times over the last 30 years, when I'd run into Wake, I'd call him Bill because it just became, not that funny running joke that kind of stayed with us. But, it's really, really sad. It's really sad. And, my heart aches for Stacy. They've been through a lot before all this, and for the entire family. I'm down here in St. Petersburg doing the Tampa Bay Rays playoff series against the Texas Rangers, and both managers in our meetings yesterday, who are getting ready for a playoff game, right? I mean, a big day in their season and in their careers. And both Kevin Cash and Bruce Bochy brought up Tim Wakefield without anybody mentioning him or asking. He is still so foremost on the minds of people around Major League Baseball. Bochy talked about how he's from Melbourne, Florida, and that's where, Tim's from. And, he talked about how highly regarded Tim is there. We just think of him as beloved in Boston, but, he was enormously well respected and loved in his hometown here in Florida. So anyway, I'm sorry to ramble on, but
it's important.
It's important.
Yeah,
it really is. And it's just shocking. It really is. But may he rest in peace. I firmly believe there's a heaven, and I have no doubt he's there.
There's, I think, with all certainty, that number 49 gets retired by the Red Sox.
I would hope so. I mean, he's, excuse me. It's hard, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's third all time in the history of the franchise in wins, and the only 2 won more were Cy Young and Roger Clemens. So, I mean, to me, that's enough right there. Yeah, I know, in the past they didn't always retire numbers of people who aren't in the Baseball Hall of Fame, but I think that's past. And and he should get it for everything else that he meant to this franchise too, and to our community. There's a lot of Red Sox players been very involved in the community and charity over the years, but none more than him. So, yeah, to me, that's a no-brainer.
You mentioned doing that game in front of what looked like a couple hundred very excited baseball fans.
Were there that many?
Sean, I mean this sincerely.
I got a text message after the game from Kevin Brown, who's one of the announcers for the Baltimore Orioles, and he said, "Congratulations on doing the least attended playoff game since 1919." And I thought it was a joke. I'm like, and then, but if you take out COVID, that's exactly what it was. So yeah, it was really depressing. And then, I had envy, right, watching those other games yesterday. I mean, the crowd in Minnesota. Rocco Baldelli talked about after the game. The crowd. I think he said he thought the stadium was going to melt. They were so into it, and they really helped drive the team. Philadelphia last night, Milwaukee, the same thing. And we're sitting here. God bless these 19,000 fans who showed up. I mean, they tried their best. And it's an indoor stadium, so they made some noise. But what I don't understand, Greg, is this stadium has been here for a long time, and the stadium is probably giving it too much credit, this pile of whatever it is. And no one goes. And they've had a good team now for a long time. And the reason nobody goes is it's a very hard place to get to, if you're familiar with the Tampa Bay area at all. I mean, especially if you're over on Tampa or east of Tampa toward Orlando, over by Winter Haven Lake. But, it's a hall. So
well, that doesn't make sense.
They're going to build a new stadium in the parking lot right next to the current one. It makes absolutely no sense to me, but that's what they're going to do.
And they're putting another investment into that area is so laughably stupid. I've been to that place once. You park and there's a bar that is hideous where there's not even AC. They spray like water from the top on top of you. It is like a cesspool where they have that stadium.
Yeah, and it's part, now a lot of these stadiums and arenas, they're part of a much bigger developmental project, and that's supposedly what this is going to be with restaurants and hotels and housing and that sort of thing. But it doesn't change the fact that, if you live over in Tampa or, on the other side of the causeway here, it's just not a place that you can get to. It's easy. So, yeah, I don't understand it. And it's too bad because, obviously they've had a good team for a long time. They've been in the playoffs 5 years in a row. They didn't play very well yesterday, obviously. That's about as bad as they could play. And if they don't play better today, their season will be over. But
I mean, do you think
it's a shame because they deserve to have a better following than they do. What they've done is really pretty remarkable.
Should they just move the team? I mean, you would think that putting a baseball team in Florida, you'd be right. You'd be prime when it comes to the audience. But I mean, should they just move the team?
No, wait a minute. Is that a shot at the demographics of baseball?
No.
Are you saying the population skews a little older here, and that tends to be the demographic of baseball?
No, I'm not saying that. But
Greg hates old people.
But I'm just suggesting that you have a team that has done really, really well. And to not be able to get the fan base out there and I don't know if I buy the argument of where it is. I mean, look at Gillette. I mean,
Is it near where the Tampa Bay Lightning play?
Well, what do you mean, look at Gillette? Gillette people go to 8 times a year, not 82 times a year.
Yeah, but this is a playoff game. This is a playoff game. I understand. But, hey, the kids are in school. Yeah.
I said that to somebody yesterday. The kids aren't in school in Minnesota.
Right.
I mean,
and there's also
people aren't working in Minnesota today. I mean, it's a lame argument. But I do think if they had it over by where the Tampa Bay Lightning play or where the Buccaneers play, where it's a lot easier for a lot more people to get there. Now, that having been said, I'm sure the Rays have studied this significantly, and they're confident that they can make it work in the parking lot next to where they are right now. But that was depressing yesterday. That should never happen in a Major League Baseball playoff game.
Sean, back to baseball around here. When we listened to Sam Kennedy talk about the search for a replacement for Chaim Bloom and how it's going to be more extensive than when they hired Chaim, and it could take a bit. Meaning that they could not have somebody for GM meetings next month in Arizona. Is that worrisome for Red Sox fans if they don't have a representative that's going to be here for the long haul at those meetings?
I think that's a good question. I mean, if I was going to be the person who wound up getting that job, I think I'd want to be there in time to go to that. That having been said, I think they do have very capable people still in the organization. I mean, Eddie Romero's name has come up a lot as a potential candidate, and I think he'd be a very good choice. And I'm assuming he's going. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. So it's not as if the Red Sox won't be represented. But I do think it's important to make sure they get the right guy or woman because, obviously this last hire didn't go very well. So they need to get it right. And, if it takes a little extra time to do it, then so be it. Although I've always a big believer. Most people I know in sports, college athletic directors, usually they kind of keep a list. Like, okay, if we moved on from our coach or the GM or whomever, who would be the people we'd want to talk to? So I would assume the Red Sox have at least identified the pool of candidates by now. If not, I'd be surprised by that.
And I saw that you're doing 3 different sports over 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
So
only one matters.
Yeah, they'll do the baseball today. I have maybe tomorrow if there goes to a game 3 here. I have Kentucky, Georgia.
These dogs.
Only one matters, Sean. Let's move on from this baseball nonsense.
I was wondering if Wiggy's there. Wiggy's been uncharacteristically quiet here. So
yes.
Well, he told us he has a tape for
although
his
the
mouth.
way I've rambled on, nobody else.
Between the hedges, brother. Between the hedges. It's the greatest.
Yeah, I love going there. We'll be there Saturday night. Great game. 2 top 20 teams, both undefeated. So
no, number one.
That'll be great. And then we have our hockey season that begins. Hard to believe, but Tuesday night we have a triple-header on ESPN, and our group will be in Pittsburgh for Chicago at Pittsburgh, the much-anticipated debut of Connor Bedard, and I hope both of the coaches have the good sense to put Connor Bedard out for the opening face-off against Sidney Crosby. Because, this guy's probably the most hyped number 1 overall pick since Sidney Crosby. So that'll be really cool. A great night for hockey fans. A great night for ESPN to start it with a triple header that will culminate with Vegas hoisting the Stanley Cup banner.
And you'll probably see John Henry. He'll probably be at that Pittsburgh game.
You never know. I've done a bunch of Pittsburgh games. I haven't seen him there yet, but I know he goes. So it's interesting. They have an interesting year. This is our 3rd year doing the NHL since ESPN got back into it, and our first game was Pittsburgh at Tampa Bay when Tampa Bay was the Stanley Cup champs. So I talked to Mike Sullivan, the coach of Pittsburgh, and he talked then about they really had to decide this is heading into 3 seasons ago now, if they were going to blow up that, veteran team or not. Maybe, okay, we've gone as far as we go with Crosby and Letang and Malkin. And, they said we're going to try it for another year. So this is now like year 3 that they're hanging in there with those guys. So, if they're going to make one more run, this is it. And I think adding Erik Karlsson from the San Jose Sharks should give them a chance to at least be back in the playoffs, if not be a serious cup contender.
All right. Well, good luck with all of it, and we will talk to you again next week. Sean McDonough, thanks for taking the time this morning.
Thank you, my friends. Have a great day.